and welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I am in conversation with Loren Spears, Executive Director of the Tomaquag Museum. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to being here.
Welcome back, actually. You've been here before.
Yes.
So there's a lot happening at the museum. We're very excited to share this with our viewers. First, tell us about your background, how you got to be executive director of this museum. We've heard this before, but it's such a great story.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, as many of you that know Tomaquag Museum, was a very small volunteer-run nonprofit, and my mom, Dawn Dove, actually was the director back in the 70s when I was young, and so I became a volunteer of the museum, and in 2003, I became the director of the museum when I founded Nuituan School there at Tomaquag Museum, and so I've been the executive director ever since. And it was still a grassroots kind of volunteer-run museum, but with this small school as well. And over the years, we restructured and really just focused in on building and developing the museum. Kind of from 2010 on, we really looked at building our staff and capacity. So I was our first official staff person for Tomaquag Museum, and now we're 11 staff.
Wow. So you've grown up in the museum, and you started with a staff of, I'm sorry, how many?
Of 0.
Oh, of 0.
So I was our first staff person. Yeah, initially in 2010, I was our official first solely for the museum staff person.
Yeah, will you share some of your memories?
You know,
just being like a little girl in the museum with your mom?
So my favorite memories always are the traditional Thanksgiving. So we still celebrate them at the museum. Non-COVID years, of course. But my favorite is always strawberry Thanksgiving or cranberry Thanksgiving. But there's traditionally 13 Thanksgivings in a year for our culture and our community. But the museum was holding anywhere from 4 to like 6 for the public to participate in and have an understanding of those traditional Thanksgivings. But there's food and there's storytelling, there's music and dance, there's the ceremony for giving thanks for the harvest, there's elders and there's the community, there's children's games, you know, a variety of activities for people to do to learn about the traditional Thanksgiving, learn about harvesting and what that's like, understanding, you know, the science around those particular plants, but also the cultural knowledge, the traditional ecological knowledge and things like that. So it's really a lot of fun. And it's a learning opportunity. So those were my favorite as a child and still are my favorite today. You know, strawberry Thanksgiving, I think because the word Wita Miniosh in our language means heartberry. And it's the gift of friendship. And I think in a world where, you know, we're blessed to have so many different people be our friends, it's a great opportunity to bring people to the museum, learn a little bit about indigenous culture and history, particular to my own nation, which happens to be the Narragansett Nation, but also other Southern New England tribal nations that have a similar ecosystem and have similar Thanksgiving, so they can learn about various tribal communities and the coming together of those tribal communities at Thanksgivings.
I'm curious to know more about strawberry Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so it's
like traditions, traditional foods, special recipes that you like.
So my favorite things, I think, strawberry cornbread or strawberry Johnny cakes or cornmeal cakes. But of course, who doesn't like strawberry shortcake, which is of course a modern day adaptation. But you know, strawberry moon tea is a lot of fun. People can look on our YouTube page. We have a children's hour, and I think Silver Moon LaRose is teaching the kids how to make strawberry moon tea in children's hour. So there's these opportunities. My aunt, Paula Dove Jennings, wrote the book Strawberry Thanksgiving. That's based off of our traditional legend on how the legend came to be of why it's called the gift of friendship. And so, you know, basically, in short, it's just if you quarrel with a friend, you share strawberries and you learn to forgive and forget. You know, so it's about forgiveness, it's about renewal, it's springtime, it's about new growth and new life, but it's also about friends and community and family and that coming together. So it's a beautiful Thanksgiving. And you know, they'll serve foods of the season. So when you think about 13 Thanksgivings, it's the harvest of that time period. So, you know, you have your spring fishing moon, and you have the saltwater harvests as you historically would have been moving to your summer village. So there's all of that, but then there's also the fun. We always have, for the last several years, we had ring and pin contests, so kids and adults, families could play, but we did it in categories by age group. You could be competing, if you will, against your mom, but the category for the prizes was really against your own age group. And so that was a lot of fun. People really enjoyed that. And, you know, so there was all kinds of different activities that you could do. Social dances, stomp dances sometimes are called, where everybody could participate. You can teach the public how to do them because they're social dances, not ceremonial dances. And so it's a lot of fun. And you know, people really love the storytelling. They love the music. One year we had one of our interns from our Indigenous Empowerment program that did a fashion show and talked to all the audience about the different styles of dress today, what someone might think of as powwow styles, so that they would learn, you know, at a powwow, sometimes you see the jingle dress dance, but you don't know the history and why it came to be. So in the fashion show, we were able to explain, they not only got to see the dance in a demonstration, but they got to understand where the style of dance came from, how the dress or clothing was made, you know, what are the materials that they're made from, the very traditional like deer skins to contemporary fabrics, and what that all means. So it was really a lot of fun, and fun for the Narragansett youth that was a high school student at the time, to be able to share that as well and teach people about our culture through those, through the clothing, but also through the music as well.
What inspired your mom to start this museum?
So my mom didn't start the museum.
Oh.
My mom just was the director in the 70s when she helped us get our 501c3 to become a nonprofit. But Princess Redwing, who was Narragansett and Wampanoag, and Eva Butler, who was an anthropologist, they actually founded this museum, which is how we got our name, Tomaquag Museum, legally Tomaquag Indian Memorial Museum, when it was founded in 1958. And I think, you know, they came together as an anthropologist and as a culture bearer to represent this museum. It was unique to have two women found a museum, and it was even more unique to have this Indigenous voice, which has been something that's been really important to us since our existence, that we have this first person voice, meaning it's an Indigenous person telling you about our history, our culture, our scientific knowledge, our life ways, everything to do with our culture and community and our history of that, from a first person perspective. So we still train our educators to be oral historians. We train them to give a first person perspective. And it's just a lens and a view, as opposed to a third-person perspective where a historian or an anthropologist might talk about another group of people. We're actually talking about ourselves.
What was first in that museum? If we were to step into that museum in 1958, what would we find?
We would find all kinds of collections that were from Eva Butler's personal collection from all over the continents of the Americas. And so our collection is really unique because it has all of these things from as far away as Alaska to all the way down to Brazil, and everywhere in between. However, we very much over the years, as we grew as a museum, started focusing in on Southern New England. So we really try to only take in new collections that are from Southern New England regions, Narragansett, Wampanoag, Pequot, Mohegan, Nipmuc, you know, tribal nations. But we also keep in mind that even though we're focusing in on the First Nations of Rhode Island or nearby Rhode Island, we also connect to national issues. So if we're talking about Indigenous foodways, we're telling about the foodways of this region to start. But then we might talk about indigenous restaurants, like my grandparents' restaurants from 1960 to 1984, to Sherry Pocknet's restaurant, Sly Fox Den, that's in Charlestown right now. That's a new restaurant there that has phenomenal food, but it's about the foods and the connection to the culture, and that leads us to food sovereignty and the rights to hunt, fish, gather, agriculture, and how that transcends time into the 21st century, right? And so we'll talk about the Narragansett Food Sovereignty Initiative that my brother-in-law Cassius and my sister-in-law Dawn run at Ashawag Farm in Ashaway, Rhode Island. But we'll also talk about the food sovereignty initiatives at Mashpee, which is a shell fishery. Then there's others that are, the Ojibwe with, wild ricing, and across the nation, the various different kinds of food sovereignty initiatives that are going on. So that's how we start with the local and then expand to like this national conversation. So we're highlighting our own communities, Narragansett, Niantic, and other First Nations of what we consider Rhode Island today.
What's on display now there?
Oh, we have lots of exhibits. We do have a foodways exhibit. We certainly have an exhibit that tells about our history and spotlights Red Wing and the work that she's done in her lifetime and how that impacted our community. We speak about Narragansett Indian Church, the August meeting powwow, which John was chatting with me about earlier, because that's the oldest recorded Native gathering in the whole entire United States. And again, key words is recorded. I think last year was 346 years, if my memory serves. COVID times are making things a little bit blurry, but it's, also, like just like that, we might start with the local, but we're also expanding to powwow and what that looks like across the nation and sharing that with people. There's exhibits on pottery, a mother-daughter potters, and how that carries on traditions from one generation to the next, to beadwork then and now, and that's speaking to stone, bone, antler, seed, shell, wood, clay, beads from our historic past, to contemporary beadwork with glass beads today, and the everything in between. So there's people who are doing wampum and wampum beadwork today, which what we call it today with this quahog shell. It's really a misnomer. Wampum means wampy. It comes from the word wampum or wampum pig, which is white or white beads. But today we really think of it more as the purple in the wampum or the quahog shell. But so we're telling all those stories and that history. We're showing other things that were representative of beadwork, like porcupine quill work, for example. We're showing, like in one exhibit, you can have wampum beads, wampum pig, that's over 5,000 years old, to beadwork that we've acquired from contemporary artists today that's 10 years old, all in one exhibit. That's something that's really unique about our museum. Is literally every exhibit speaks to then and now. And part of the reason for that is we are a living people. We're connected to that history, but we are still here today. And we want people to understand that not only are we connected by that history and that it's part of who we are, but we're also here connected to everything else that's going on in the 21st century.
Bless you.
Excuse me. And so it's really powerful. So we have basket exhibits. In one of the basket exhibits, it's showing a corn washing basket that was made by the students of Nuituan School in like 2000, maybe 6. And then it has baskets that have historic basket stamp designs on them that are from like the mid 1800s. And so then we have what we call fancy baskets that include curly work, and we talk about the economy and the changes over time and how it became an economy as Europeans came here, because there's actually a handkerchief basket in there. Well, before Europeans came, we didn't have handkerchiefs in the way that Europeans did, so we didn't need a little fancy basket for that. So we also have a yarn basket in there, but they're made by native people over time, but it was also a market economy that became to be. We have stone tools, we have murals, we have all kinds of things in our exhibit. We have an amazing exhibit on Ellison Tarzan Brown, a very famous Narragansett athlete who won the Boston Marathon twice and was an Olympian, actually a named Olympian twice. People don't always know that. He went to the Berlin Olympics, but he was a named Olympian in the early 40s, but that was when World War II was happening, and so he was unable, like everybody else, to go. So we speak to him about his amazing life as an athlete, but also tell people about how he was a hero in other ways. Come to the museum and you can find out more.
For sure. So you started a school.
I did.
How did that happen?
Stubbornness. I tend to just bull ahead on things. And I was a teacher in the public schools, which I loved, but I had young children as well, and I was not happy with some things that were happening for them. And instead of just homeschooling them myself, I decided, well, I could open a school and then other Native kids could come too and have an experience where they could learn about their own history, their own culture, their community, arts, science, history, literature, etc. And so I ran that school from 2003 to 2010. Unfortunately, the economy and the floods of 2010 kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back then. And we really, as an organization, had to think about how could we structurally make Tomaquag Museum really strong. And it had always been kind of grassroots run, volunteer run, and it was work with Rhode Island Foundation that we were part of their expansion arts program in the sort of from like 2006, I think, to 2009 or 10, somewhere in there. And we learned a lot about how to be a business. Like, nonprofits are run by passion. People have something that they love to do, that they think is important, and they often run it from that passion. But you sometimes have to go back and build the foundation. We had an amazing collection. I mean, it's 15 to 20,000 pieces in our belongings collection. We have over 100,000 pieces in our archival collection. So we have this amazing collection. We've, make these exhibits for people to see. We have a wonderful education program, and I think we've always been strong in those areas. But we had to learn how to build a business. And so that was mine and the board's job from 2010 on, was to build the business. And one of our dreams was to get to a new museum because we need it. We don't have the space that we need in our current location to do the kind of work that we want to do. And so in order to do that, we had to really build our structure. And so we did. We worked really hard building the infrastructure of the organization while still maintaining a high level of educational caliber for our audience and for our public that was coming to the museum, but also ensuring our sustainability. Even though we're over 60 years old, we wanted to ensure we were going to be 260 years old one day. And part of that was building the business infrastructure, and that's what we've really worked hard to do. And we've gone from literally myself as the first staff person to just recently hiring our business and finance manager. That's our 11th staff person. So we're really excited about that and excited about the growth, and and really thankful to the funders that really have helped us grow over the years, which there have been many different funders that have done that. And without them, without the Rhode Island Foundation, and without USDA Rural Development, or one of our newest funders, the Pepito Opportunity Connection, that's helped build our Indigenous Empowerment Program, we couldn't be where we are today.
So you're not going to be where you are much longer. So you're moving out of Exeter into Kingston.
We are.
This is so exciting.
It is so exciting.
You break ground this year, correct?
Fingers crossed, everybody. Yes, that's the intention, is to break ground this fall. A lot of ducks need to be put in a row, but we're working really hard on it. And we have made an agreement with the University of Rhode Island for 18 acres of land on Ministerial Road. And it's been years in the making. We probably worked to get to that over like 5 years, if not longer. And we're really excited about it. Most people have seen the master plan in the newspaper or on our website, but we've done a lot of the architectural and engineering work. For those that don't know, it's 4 buildings, a main museum building, an education center, the Indigenous Empowerment Center, and the Archive Collections Research Center. And in the end, we'll have a 4-building campus along with all kinds of gardens. Our landscape architect has put in all indigenous plants with themes of our edible, medicinal, spiritual, and useful plants. So things that you might harvest to make cordage or baskets and things like that, or things that are giving you traditional medicines, things that are, of course, edible, and the like. So we'll be able to use the whole outside landscape as part of our educational programming. We'll have a 3 Sisters garden, corn, bean, squash. We'll have an outdoor mini village. One installation will be an art project that we're going to do with our artists from the Indigenous Empowerment Program, along with a partnership with the Steel Yard that will make a nushquito or a longhouse that will be made out of steel where people can go in and sit down, and it'll be like a permanent structure with art installations inside telling our stories. And then we'll have a Wee-2 or a smaller dome-shaped home that we'll construct every year out of natural materials. And so we're really excited about that. We've got lots of great partnerships. Rhode Island School of Design is one of our partners that helped us create an environmental assessment. Our goal is to be net zero. What energy we have to use, we want to bring back in through solar power, solar energy, water capture, through insulation and various other strategies that they've given us to conserve and preserve energy, and so that we can get net zero. Laura Briggs and some of her students helped us do that, which was just phenomenal. And we have a partnership with Roger Williams University through their pro bono outreach program, and we have the blessing of having Duffy and Sweeney Law Firm as our lawyers to help us through this very rigorous process, and also help us build some of the back-end structures that people don't think about that you need to review as you grow. HR things, for example. We also have a partnership with the University of Rhode Island's landscape architecture class that they did this year. Our landscape architect does what's like near the buildings, like that's the normal. But we had this dream because we had 18 acres of land. Wouldn't it be great if there was a path that went to the URI bike path? Wouldn't it be great if there was a path that went over to the South County bike path? Wouldn't it be great if we made a loop within our own 18 acres where we could take school groups on traditional ecological knowledge walks, or families could just walk along on their own and look at signage? So they helped with visioning for signage and for outdoor classroom spaces. So like the pathway goes, and then there's like a little nook where you can kind of have a bench and a chair where we could, sit down and talk to people about, the knowledge that we want to share about, mushrooming or harvesting, or what are these plants good for, or for an outdoor workshop or class. So it was really a lot of fun to work with the students, and they had some really great ideas and some visions on how to create outdoor learning spaces as well as exploration spaces.
So right now you have 11 employees. How many do you think you'll have once the
so our first benchmark number when we move in is about 24.
Wow, you're gonna double.
Yep, scary.
Well,
exciting,
what's the scary part?
Scary.
What's the scary part?
When you grow, you got to maintain. So there's all that work that has to be done for that. But yeah, our numbers are doubling. We literally almost doubled in the last year and a half over COVID. We started COVID with 6 people, and now we're 11.
Wow.
And we are planning on when we move in, we would basically double again. And the projections are like another half amount would happen by year 3 as well. Plus, there will be a lot of contractual jobs as well, and not just the construction jobs. There's all the construction jobs. Like right now, we're hiring folks for our campaign committee, and we're hiring folks for our interior design, and of course, we have the architect and the engineers and the landscape architect that are all hired and part of the team, and we have the exhibit design firm that we're hiring. Well, we're in the midst of, we'll be interviewing in February. We've been reviewing the RFQs and things like that this month, and so those things are all ongoing. So there's a lot of jobs. There's the temporary, if you will, construction kinds of jobs, the pre-construction and the construction jobs. But then there's also a lot of permanent jobs that will be coming out of this, which is really phenomenal. Phenomenal for Rhode Island, but it's also exciting for Tomaquag Museum to see how we can grow and how we can serve the public. I mean, we do group tours, but our space is small. So our tour groups need to be small. We can expand them a little bit in the nice weather because we have a sort of 2 seasons, like warm spring, summer, early fall, kind of half year, if you will, season building, because it's not heated, that we can use in the sort of warmer weather to have more space. And we also use our outdoor space. People love our TEK walks, which is traditional ecological knowledge walks, where you learn about the trees and the plants and the animals and how historically we use them, but also how today Indigenous people are still harvesting and using these resources as foods, as medicines, as art forms, as useful tools, etc. And we really look forward to having the opportunity to have the space to do this really well. You know, today we still we do a lot of offsite programming where we go to you. So like if you have a really big 5th grade class, you know, grade level that you want to see, if it's, you know, a large group, we go to you. If it's a small group, or you can break it down, then you can come to the museum itself. We also have lots of virtual programming that we do. We had already started virtual programming before the pandemic ever happened. Of course, it ramped up significantly with that, and so we've done a ton of virtual programming for, you know, the K-12 groups, the college age group, adult programming, and then we also provide a lot of programming as well. So we've been doing virtual children's hours. We've been doing different series. We have virtual book club. Our winter series will be starting shortly. They can check out our website it updates regularly for programming listings. But we put things that are recorded all on our YouTube page so people can go backwards and look at those. We've had different series, literature and author culture conversations. We've had quarantine creatives where we interviewed Native artists. We're doing a variety of things. And our next series is going to be about culture bearers. And so it'll be a multitude of different kinds of ways that they're continuing culture forth into the 21st century.
And we are down to about 3 minutes, all right? So what else would you like to chat about before we wrap up?
Let's see. I know there was something, so let me see
Any
if
events coming up that you want to share with
Oh
the
yes,
audience?
there was one event that I really wanted to make sure I mentioned because it's coming up shortly. It is Read Across Rhode Island. We partner, that's something that Tomaquag does a lot. We partner with a lot of different organizations in a lot of different ways, and if they want to know more about that, they can check out our resources page and see the kinds of partnerships that we have. But we're doing Read Across Rhode Island, and the kickoff is Tuesday, January 25th, 7 to 8 p.m. We have it on our website as well as it's on their website, and I happen to be the honorary chair. And the book is, that'd be nice if I knew the name of the book. I've read it and now my brain just went blank. Firekeeper's Daughter, and it's a murder mystery. It's written by an Indigenous author. It's a wonderful book, and I'm happy to be the honorary chair of Read Across Rhode Island this year. And so there'll be all kinds of activities. I believe Silver Moon will be doing book club with that book as well, and we're doing some teacher trainings with that book. So it'll be a lot of fun throughout the year. And I especially was excited when they asked me to be the honorary chair. I was a stickler and said I had to read the book first. And so I read it real quick and I loved it because It tells you a lot about Ojibwe culture today and the intersectionality of sovereignty and federal recognition and all these complexities that happen, legal jurisdiction, all of these things, but it's all while there's a murder mystery happening. So it's exciting.
Sounds like I have to pick up this book. Thanks so much for coming in, Loren. Thank you for joining us. I'm Darlene DeRezzo. You've been watching State of the State. Please look for us on YouTube as well as on Instagram at State of the State RI.